Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Lola Waterman, Esquire, here with me today. How you doing, Lola?
I'm doing great. How are you, Cedric? Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm doing phenomenal. I'm very excited for our conversation tonight. Everybody, we're in for a great conversation with a great person. I want to say hi to everybody who's tuning in right now, whether we can see you or we cannot see you. You definitely are important to us. So that means if you're on Roku TV, Apple TV, Android TV, Facebook, or YouTube, we're shouting hello to you. Thanks for being here today. And I'll be looking for your comments. Feel free to put your emojis in the comments, put your hand signs, the emoticons that express the way that you feel. I'd like to see those in the chat. When we get deep in the discussion, put a question in there for our guest or for me. Most importantly, everybody, stay for the second half because as you know, it gets deep. We got a couple comments already. Let's see what people are saying. Nancy Ramos says hi. And Linda Stevens Goodwin says hello. So hi to everybody. And we're going to get right into it. Melody Davis, we see you out there too. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Lola. Everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Lola, where are you from?
Yes. Well, that's a complicated question, but I'm going to try to give you the shortest answer I possibly can. I was born in East Lansing, Michigan. Okay. Immigrant parents. My parents are Nigerian immigrants. And so when I turned about 4 or 5, they relocated back to Nigeria. My parents went there primarily to take care of my grandmother. My grandfather just passed away. And so Nigeria was really where I spent most of my formative years, if you will. So I was there between the ages of 5 and 16 when I came back to the United States. I attended college in Arizona State, moved to Atlanta for a little while, ended up in New York about 16 years ago. And I went to law school here. I got married here. I had 3 girls here. They go to school in Brooklyn. I work in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn has now become my life for the past 16 years. So that's the short answer.
We're gonna unpack that.
Yes.
And we're gonna start toward the beginning. Mm-hmm. So when you were born here in America, you were born in Michigan, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you have a lot of family from Nigeria here with you as well, or was it just you and your parents?
It was just me and my parents. My father was getting his PhD at Michigan State University. My mom was getting her master's in broadcasting, also at Michigan State University. My understanding is that they both had gotten a scholarship. They came here. But then when my grandmother started to get really ill, my parents decided to migrate back to Nigeria to take care of her.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I'm the first out of 4. I have 2 sisters and I have 1 brother. I'm the eldest. And we're all here now. I have a sister who lives here in New York with me, and 2 of my other siblings, my sister and my brother, both live in Maryland.
Talk to me about the importance of education through the lenses of your parents. What were those conversations like?
Well, the most pivotal and the most memorable was when I graduated from college, Arizona State University. I recall my mom, we were at my graduation ceremony, taking pictures outside. And I recall my mom was standing right next to me, right? I was having a good day. I was graduating college. It was a milestone in my life. And she whispered to me and she says to me, "What is your next step?" So for me, it's like, lady, I just graduated from college. You need to be excited about that, right? Right. You need to be excited that I graduated despite the hardship and the struggles and the challenges that I went through to graduate. I thought, I had reached the pinnacle. But right. She whispered and she said to me, "What is your next move?" Mm-hmm. And that's when I knew that, listen, it doesn't end here. I have to keep pushing and I have to keep moving. And ultimately, I ended up going to law school after that. Okay. So education is very important to my parents. As I said, My mom has a master's in broadcasting and journalism. My father had a PhD in agriculture and food science. So they both take education very seriously.
Right. And they left Nigeria
Mhm.
to come to America to go to school. So
Exactly.
obviously that was a big deal,
Yes.
right? What was it like? What was it like for you growing up in Nigeria from 4 to about 15 years old, looking at the transition that you guys just made from America, which a lot of people might look at as a land of opportunity,
Right.
a place where you can see things that other people around the world don't see. You get to feel a certain energy that other people don't get to feel. And so what was it like for you, your mother and father, being sort of ambassadors for American life in the rich, steep, royal culture of Nigeria?
Well, I have to say Nigeria was overwhelmingly, again, that was where my formative years were spent.
Mhm.
And it was overwhelmingly happy for me. There were
Okay.
certain things that I did go through that were not so happy, but in hindsight, in retrospect, were pivotal points in my life. So, growing up in Nigeria, my father became a professor when we moved back to Nigeria. So he was teaching in a public university. My mother had gotten a job in a broadcasting company. And it was interesting watching both of my parents. My father was very into public service. That was, the thing that was him. And everything from being a member and a president of the Lions Club, of the local Lions Club, to being involved in his fraternity, to, anything where public service was needed, my father was there. My mother, on the other hand, she was also very much into public service. But I watched my mom struggle. She basically started from the bottom of the corporation and worked her way all the way to the top of the corporation. And this is a
Wow.
male dominated field.
Hold on.
Yes,
Over the course, yeah, because ladies and gentlemen, drop a number one in the chat if you feel the gravity of the comments that she's giving right now. A woman who comes in at the bottom, and I want to know where she started, but goes from the bottom to the top of a
right.
corporation. That's huge. I can only imagine the adversities,
Yes,
the stress, right? That she had
absolutely.
to adapt and overcome. So
Yes.
what was her position in the beginning, and how did it influence you as you saw her to rise to the top, and how long did it take her to rise to the top?
So she basically started from the bottom being radio, right? You
Okay.
start from radio, you're doing, carrying bags and stuff like that, to having her own radio show, to then move into television, and then from television being like a news person, and then working her way up to producing, right? She's producing her own shows, to all the way up to the general manager, which is the equivalent of the CEO. And she was reporting directly. Yes.
Can I ask you? I want to know if you had conversation with your mother as you graduated college and you began to get out into the world. If you ever talked to her about what it took for her to actually climb the ranks of the broadcasting industry. For people who don't know, the broadcasting industry is a very tough place to get
Is
promoted. It's a very tough place because it's so competitive, you
right.
know. But I want to know, how does she go from one capacity to the next? Was she reading books? Was she obtaining mentors? Was she a prodigy? How did she grow that way? Because it's huge to go from carrying bags to having your own station. That's huge.
Absolutely. So I know hard work was definitely one.
Yeah.
Always trying to better herself was definitely another. And I watched my mom struggle. I watched her leave the house at the crack of dawn, right? And oftentimes not come back until late at night, right? And my father had to step in to take care of us. My father had to pick us up from school and take us back home, make sure homework was done, because my mom was at work. So hard work is definitely one of the things she had to put in order to rise. And ultimately, one thing that my mom led her life by, which is what I'm emulating, as I, go on my journey, is faith. She's grounded in her faith, and she knows that God opens doors. If God wants us to go down a path, God will find a way for it to work out for her. And that's exactly what happened in climbing up the corporate ladder. She went in not thinking she was going to, get the job of the CEO. She interviewed directly with the governor of the state. It's a state owned corporation,
This is
right?
all happening in Africa.
This is in Nigeria.
Okay.
So she had to interview. She said when she went in, we always have this um complex about, I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think they're gonna hire me. But she was fortunate enough to have a mentor who encouraged her, submit your application anyhow. You might think you're not qualified, but you never know. Submit your application. The funny thing is the mentor was a man, right?
Yeah.
And he would always encourage her, go ahead, do it, give it a shot. And she did. And it's funny because I was just having this conversation with her a couple of weeks ago. She said at the interview, it was a group interview, right, of everybody who was trying to interview for the job. And they would throw a question out there. And, several people would answer the question and talk for about 5 or 10 minutes so eloquently. And she was saying to herself the whole time she sat there, like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
And she was surprised when she got the call from the governor saying, listen, out of all the candidates, you are the most qualified. You were the only woman and you're getting the job. And that's what happened.
This is exactly where I wanted to go with this. She was the only woman out of so many candidates. Were you watching your mother break the mold of what society thought that a woman should be doing or has the capacity to do? Or is that something that was just happening all over the place?
So for me at the time, I didn't recognize how much power my mom had, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was 14, 15, 16. I was concerned about boyfriends and, just having a good old time.
Mm-hmm.
But now, as an adult, looking back at what she did, I'm like, my mom is phenomenal, right?
That's right.
Because having to deal with men, and this is in an African country where they believe that, women should know their place. But
Right.
going against all odds and fighting, that's something that motivates me every single day, watching my mom, how she overcame all those challenges and still came out on top. So, now in retrospect, looking back, I see how dynamic my mom was,
Everybody, let's get some emojis into the chat. Share this video because we're getting ready to make this into a victorious moment for all of our public. The generation that your mother is a part of is a very important generation. It's full of women who decided that they were going to do what their heart's desire was, that they weren't just going to do whatever society was telling them to do. And because of the efforts of people like your mother in that last generation, women today can say, you know what?
Yeah.
I desire to be the CEO of this company, Fortune 500. I desire to be the CEO of my own company. I desire to be a trailblazer. It's my right. It's my birthright. My birthright. I'm overqualified in some examples.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, it's the work of that generation that has propelled our current generations to see the types of accomplishments that they're seeing. So much respect for your mother. Everybody else who has a mother in the same generation as Lola Waterman's mother who was working hard. Doesn't matter if your mother was working at the factory.
Right.
Your mother was doing something different. She said, I'm gonna go to work from sun up to sundown. That was different.
Yes.
And because of that, because of those examples, we have a woman in the vice presidency in America. We have more women CEOs on the globe than ever before. So this is a celebration for women. What do you say? What do you say to the young woman out there who's graduating college or who is college age, who wants to do more in the world? What do you say to them today?
So one thing that one of my friends has been saying to me over and over again as I'm going through this journey in my life is what Shirley Chisholm said. If
Okay.
they don't give you a seat at the table, you do what?
You make
Bring
one.
your own folding chair.
Ooh,
That's
okay.
how I've been moving, and that's my advice to everyone right now.
Right.
It doesn't matter if the door is not wide open, you kick it open, right? It doesn't matter if life is pushing you one direction, you push back, you fight hard. If you know that your heart is into something, nothing should prevent you from chasing and going after your dreams. You
Mhm.
fight hard for what you believe in. And so that's a lesson that I want to leave with all young women. No one ever said it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Anything worth having is not going to be easy. But just because you come up against challenges, against adversity, does not mean that you can't go for it. You equip yourself with mentors. Get some mentors around you. You
That's
do
right.
your study, you research. Thank God for Google. I've done so much stuff in life just by Googling and finding information. And I have the best mentors in my life. I have a huge support group, like huge, right? Most of whom are on the call today. And they're always supporting me. I have a very supportive husband. Even my daughters, although they're toddlers and young, they motivate me
Yeah.
because I want to be the best mom, just like my mom has been for me. I have a
Right.
7-year-old, I have a 5-year-old, and I have a 3-year-old.
Mhm.
And my question to myself every day is, what legacy am I leaving them? My mom left me a legacy, right? And
That's right.
it's my responsibility to leave my kids a legacy as well. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm working on right now, and that's going to be what drives me for the rest of my life.
As you matured in Africa, did you begin to conceptualize what your future would be like? Did you ever intend to leave Africa and come back to America?
So, what I mentioned at the beginning about things that happened in my life that were pivotal. One such instance is losing my father at the age of 16. So my father was a victim of gun violence at the age of 16 in Nigeria. And it was when my father passed away, it was 3 months before I graduated from high school that my father passed. And at that point, my mom and my aunts and my uncles, at that time, they didn't really ask my opinion. I was 16. They don't talk to 16-year-olds in Nigeria. You do as you're told, and, you know, um, no one really needs any input from you.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, they all decided I was going to return to the States to attend college. And that's what happened. So at 17, I moved to the United States. I moved to Arizona, and I was living with an aunt of mine. And that's where I went to college at, in Arizona State.
In a climate like the one that your father experienced,
Mhm.
is there an understanding that we have to obtain an education, we have to be high achievers, and we have to preserve our bloodline? Is that an understanding and establishment?
No, preserving the bloodline is not really big. I'm married to an African American man, so
Mhm.
that was not a big thing that wasn't discussed in my family. It was my mom was, hey, listen, whomever God leads you to. That was your question, right? In terms of the
No,
bloodline,
so what I meant was we have one life to live.
right?
Make it valuable, make it count. There's gun violence here. Go
Hmm.
where we can survive.
Right.
Was that a thing?
No, it was just mainly, listen, you're an American citizen. Your aunt wants to take care of you. You're going to move in with her. You're going to go to college in Arizona State. And you're going to, and I took it upon myself when I got to the United States to help my family back home.
Mhm.
So most people go to college and you're only thinking about yourself. Well, guess what? I had to come to college and I had to get a job because
Right.
one, I had to try to pay some of my way through college in addition to taking out loans. But I also had to send money back home because now my home had become a single parent household, right? It's just my mom, and I had three younger siblings. So she had to take care of them. And I recall I was working when I first got here. I got a job at McDonald's. I was working McDonald's in the morning, and I was working the Burger King at night. Right. And I would get up in the morning. McDonald's was at 7 to 12. I would go home, eat lunch, go back to Burger King. So for me, coming back to the States was life will be easier in the States. And
Okay.
second, you can go to college there, you can start your life there. And I believe the plan of the family plan was we would all graduate from high school in Nigeria and incrementally move back to the United States, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So
Hmm.
that's exactly what happened. I came first, followed by my sister, and then my brother, my sister came. So
Hmm.
we all eventually moved to the United States, and we're all here now.
Wow. So
Mhm.
you came to America with achievement on your mind, with
Oh,
um, a wherewithal, resilience, focus. It must have been very tough for you as a teenager and young adult after just losing your father to come here and work so hard. You
mhm.
know, um, excuse me. Survival is a thing.
It is. It is. It's
Living
real.
living in survival mode, living
Mhm.
under the pressure of survival mode is a thing. It's a daily reality for people clear across the world. And so
Absolutely.
when I talk about preserving yourself, preserving your family, I'm talking about being in survival mode, and that's okay, right?
Mhm.
To say, listen, we don't have time to not take life serious.
Right.
People are losing their lives. Lives are at stake. Go out there and achieve. Go out there and make your life count. Go out there and establish a legacy for yourself. So you
Absolutely.
return to America. You took two jobs. You continue to go to school. And who did you desire to become professionally as you graduated high school and entered college? Who did you desire to become professionally?
So I first was introduced to law or even the idea of becoming a lawyer by watching Matlock. I don't know if you recall Matlock, but
Oh
that
yeah,
was
yeah. I'm very
way
familiar.
back
Yeah,
when, right?
yeah, yep.
And I used to recall watching them shows, and at the beginning of the shows, the crime happens at the beginning of the show, and I'm like, he
Mhm.
can't solve that. And
Right,
at the end of the show, Mr. Madlock has solved the whole case. So I
right.
wanted to be just like him. And then one of my uncles got married, and he married a lawyer.
Okay.
And she at the time was living in England, but she would come to Nigeria to visit.
Mhm.
And so I, would chat with her, and I thought, listen, I might want to become a lawyer someday.
Mhm.
But then I went through my own issues when I started college, self-doubt, not thinking I was good enough to go to law school. And so when I was in college, I decided I was going to pursue marketing instead. And
Okay.
that's what I did. So I went to business school. I graduated with a degree, BSc in marketing. And I was in marketing for a few years. But that thing kept whispering. And, I like to say to my father, kept
Right.
whispering to me, like, this is what you want to do. So why are you selling yourself short? Right. So I started to volunteer in a shelter for physically abused women.
Mhm.
And this is while I had my job as a marketing rep for Kraft Foods. Kraft Foods is the one that makes the mac and cheese, and
I'm
Velveeta
familiar.
and all of that stuff, Kool-Aid,
Mhm.
right? So
Yep.
I was working with Kraft Foods, and when I would get off work, I would go volunteer. And I used to recall, I mean, I was just doing easy stuff around the shelter, data entry, talking to the women. And I would always see the lawyers come in and pick up the ladies in the morning, take them to court, and bring them back. So I started talking to those lawyers. Hey, what's happening in court? How's this case going? And so that was the other pivotal point in my life. I wanted to be a lot more involved in the women's life, right?
Okay.
Other than just entering data. I wanted to be impactful in some way. And that's what finally took me to applying to law school. I got accepted in New York, of all places, right? And so I did the trek. I moved out to New York. And I just have to tell you, one of the things that I've experienced in my life is starting over, right? And chartering the unknown and just getting started from scratch. And that was the same thing that happened when I moved to Arizona, not knowing anyone but my aunt and my aunt's family. That was the same thing that happened when I moved to New York. So when I got to New York, I didn't have an apartment, right? I had gotten accepted into law school. I had saved a little bit of money from working. I had 3 months of rent, and I moved here. And I was sleeping on someone's couch for 3 months because I couldn't find an apartment. And it just didn't make any kind of sense that a studio apartment in New York at the time was costing $950 because I was paying $950 where I came from for my mortgage for a 3-bedroom house. Right. So I'm like, $950 for a studio in Washington Heights? This makes no kind of sense, right? So I laid out on my friend's couch for 3 months. And then when she said it was time to go, right, that's when I was like, I have to get an apartment. So I eventually got my apartment, eventually got settled in. And, it's just been like a reinvention. I've always had to reinvent myself. I've always had to figure out how to survive. And I've always lived in survival mode most of my life. Mm-hmm. And God has blessed me so much that if I put in the work, which is the most important part, God has always blessed the fruit of my labor. And as I start this new journey into being a candidate, I didn't have any mentors. I didn't know, anyone who was going to hold my hands and guide me through the process. But God is blessing everything that I'm doing and support and surrounding me with the most supportive people ever. So yes.
I see so many of your supporters in the building tonight, and I want to say that I appreciate each and every one of you. You obviously are a beautiful person. You are on a wonderful journey, and people are a witness to that. When you said that you decided to volunteer at the shelter, even though you were already working in corporate America at Kraft, that means a lot. And it says volumes about your character. It really communicates how much you care about the people. It's not easy to walk away from a job at a Fortune 500 or 100 company like Kraft and say, I'm going to volunteer at the shelter. Ladies and gentlemen, be aware that what's happening at the shelter, it doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good, and it does not feel good unless you have a heart like Lola Waterman, where you feel the need for service.
Right.
You feel the benefits of providing service day in and day out, and then it becomes a beautiful place. And then you don't want to be anywhere else in the world but in the service of others. Yes. And so for you to have left corporate America at that time and got into a space of public service sounds like a true destiny coming true. I'm looking forward to more of your journey. We're talking to Lola Waterman today, and we're having just a wonderful time, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go for a brief break right now. Everybody, sit tight. Don't go anywhere. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network and our viewership. And we're back. Lola, how you feeling out there?
I'm feeling great. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling
Welcome
great.
back. Good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you say to the professional out there who's thinking about doing something similar to what you did, getting into public service, but they are deep in a corporate job that they really don't know how to leave? What do you say to them tonight?
Well, my first advice always is make sure you're saving your money, right?
Okay.
There are lots of things we can be spending money on. I wouldn't call myself frugal. I'm pretty good with
Right.
not spending too much money, right?
Yep.
That could be because of my upbringing. I've always been a saver. And so it's important to have money saved up. So when I decided to go to law school, as you mentioned, I was in corporate America. I had a home. I bought my first house at 21, and I had two cars at the time when I decided I was going to law school. So I had to give everything up. I had to sell my cars. I had to sell my home. And it was that money that I used to basically live until I started law school, right? And even throughout the first few months of law school before I ran out of money. So what I would always say is save money before you start on any journey. Money makes the world go around, as they say. So
That's
you
right.
need a little bit of it. Also, mentorship. I've benefited so greatly from having mentors in my life. I have mentors in almost every facet of my life, whether it's my professional journey, whether it's my spiritual journey, whether it's my motherhood journey. Like, I always seek out women that are like-minded and that I know are supportive, truly supportive. And those are the people that I make part of my circle. Those are the people that I look up to. So yes.
For those women who might be following your journey tonight and agreeing with everything that you're saying, what does it mean for the people in your circle to be supportive? What does support mean to you?
Oh, listen, all the women on this, they know that most of them don't even want to hear from me no more because they know I'm stressing them out with this campaign. But support means sometimes just listening when I'm having a down moment. 'Cause every one of us has that moment, right? When you're not so sure of yourself, when you lack confidence, being able to get on the phone and call a sister friend and tell them about the day that I'm having, about the challenges that I'm facing, and them being able to tell me that you got this, you can do this, God got you, and we got you. For me, that's support, right? Having my mom, the moments that I'm down, being like, you need to get on your knees, let's pray together, right? And moments where I couldn't even pray for myself, my mother's there holding me tight, just praying and showering me with everything else that I couldn't do for myself, right? And so that's what support means for me, being there for me. And most of my sister friends can tell you, I'm getting on the phone every day with this campaign. Hey, can you write this letter up for me? Can you type this up for me? Can you call this person? And they're there 24/7 every time that I need them. So, it's important to have that type of a village around you,
That's right.
and I'm blessed for that. I'm truly blessed. And for all the ladies out there listening to me, I love you all. Thank you for being there for Lola and her girl down.
You decided to run for judge. Talk about that endeavor.
Woo! All right.
And hold on. My gears are turning tonight.
Yes.
I gotta say this. I am loving your energy. I love your countenance. I love your focus. I love the things that you're talking about tonight. The way that you draw it back to your faith, your village, your objectives is phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, continue to blow up the chat. Put your encouragements in the comment box. Put the emojis in the box. Put the fire emojis because I'm on fire for her tonight.
Yes.
You're running for judge. Talk about that campaign. Talk about why you're the candidate and talk about how we can all support you. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. So, just a little background on what I'm doing now. I work in the court system right now. I'm the principal law clerk for a judge, a Supreme Court justice. I've been doing that since 2017. prior to that, I had my own business. I had my own law firm. So when I graduated from law school, it was my second career. I said to myself when I gave up my marketing job and went into law school that when I graduated from law school, I was going to find a job that I liked and enjoyed doing. So when I graduated from law school, I really couldn't find anything out there that spoke to me. And eventually I decided that I was going to start my own practice. In hindsight, it was crazy that I went straight into like starting my own practice
Right.
straight out of law school,
Right.
but I never had a more fulfilling job. There's nothing better than building business from scratch, right?
That's right.
Was it hard? Absolutely. It was tough. It was the toughest years of my life. I often share the story that there were some days where I only had $10 to eat. And I'm talking about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I had $10 to eat, right? And so I would have my $1 bagel in the morning. I would have my $3 hamburger in the afternoon, and I would save the rest for dinner. Those were hard times, but I was focused because I knew where I was going, right? I knew what I wanted was a successful practice. And so going through the struggles in the beginning was not, you know, too crazy for me because I knew where I was going. So I had my practice. I grew my practice. My business was great. I specialized in estate planning. I did some elder law work. I did immigration work. I did landlord tenant, but I also volunteered a lot. Like all in almost every court except for federal court, I was volunteering, right? Because I believed in giving back to my community. So then I got hired in the court system. I went into the court system. I started to work for a judge. And my judge also is one of my mentors. I would sit in the courtroom and see how she interacted with people. So I was, intrigued and taken by that. And that's when I started thinking about becoming judge. I feel that judges make critical decisions in almost every facet of our lives, right? Everything from what's happening in our homes, what's happening in our schools, what's happening in our churches. Judges get to make those decisions.
That's right.
And I see a judge being an extension of public service. You don't become a judge because you deserve it. You're there because the people put you there to serve them. And that's how I see a judgeship. I I believe that as a judge, you need to have empathy. And how do you develop empathy? Like one of my girlfriends says, empathy, it's something that is cultivated your whole life, entire life.
That's right.
Empathy means being able to step into your shoes and understand how you're feeling about any particular issue. Empathy means me having been through struggles myself. I can relate to you when you're, you know, in my courtroom talking to me about your issues.
That's right.
Empathy means me figuring out the why between why this person committed a crime, not what they did, not that this person committed a crime, but why did they commit the crime? It's empathy that gets a judge to view all of that and to consider all of that. And I feel that because of my life challenges, because of the struggles that I've been through, I'm uniquely qualified to sit on the bench and to be able to use my qualifications, my empathy, and my demonstrated commitment to my community to make decisions that benefit anyone that would appear in my courtroom. So,
You know,
mhm.
I I see you as relating to so many millions of people across the country tonight because you understand the fabric of humanity. Your experience ranges the spectrum of achievement, of location, geographic location. It sounds like you've almost been there and done that for most people's experiences. You've been there in some way or another, whether it's been because you're working at two jobs and going to school at the same time, you're making a major transition in your life, you've lost a parent, you pushed through, you faced adversity, you overcame adversity, you kept your faith intact. So I'm thinking, who can't you relate to? And I'll give you a story from my perspective. There was a time where I had to go in front of a judge, and I was afraid. I'm not somebody who's been to court a million times, but because of the entire, I mean, the building. When you first walk in the building and you get wanded down, it's like, oh, I could be in trouble. I could be in a
Right.
lot of trouble.
Mhm.
And when you're sitting in that chamber and you're waiting on the judge to come out, you're hoping that it's going to be somebody who has some level of understanding, or else you could be doomed. And
Right.
so when I saw somebody sit in that seat who I felt had empathy, who could see through people and see the underlying narrative as to what's going on with the person, it meant the world to me. It made me be able to identify with whatever the judgment might be, because I understand this person is being fair.
Right. Right.
This person is not discriminating or being indiscriminate. This
Right.
person is not giving out favors, but this person is explaining what's going on, and then they're making a firm and just decision. And that means so much. And
Absolutely.
it's clear to me that we need you in the judge's seat. It's clear to me that we need you to represent all that you represent
Yes.
in the seat of judge for Kings County. It makes so much sense to me. Ladies and gentlemen, you might not know this about me, but I'm a barber. And last week I was cutting hair. I was focused on my job. I was doing one of the things that I love to do. And Lola, she came in with I kid you not, when her and her coworker opened that door, they opened the door to the point where the wind held the door open for a few seconds. And all I heard was heels walking straight through like a train. Ladies, and she walked all the way, and there's 10 barbers and a stylist in our barbershop. We got a long barbershop. She walks directly to the back of the barbershop and started from the back and worked her way back to the door. I had to introduce myself. I had to figure out who she was. I'm so inspired by the energy that precedes you and then the shoes that you stand in. And you bring people with you.
Yes, I do.
You bring people with you. And
Yes.
so this is history in the making today.
Amen. Mhm.
Why do you feel that you should be elected judge? Why is it that people need to vote for you?
Yes. So, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier about public service. Um, as a law clerk right now, and I'm going to be tying in some of what you just said, which was, very poignant, which is like when you show up in front of a judge, most people just want to be heard, right? They just want someone to listen to them and and empathize with them. And as a law clerk, I'm usually the first person that litigants talk to in the courthouse, like
Okay.
when they get into the courtroom.
Mhm.
I'm the one who tries to resolve the disputes between the parties, and then after we've conferenced the case, the judge comes out to deal with the matter. And one thing I realized is if you take the time to be patient and to explain the law to people, that they are more receptive of the judgment. They might not like it, but they understand it, right? And so some of the things that I've done since I became a lawyer, since I moved to Brooklyn, is creating that legal transparency, letting people know what their legal rights are, whether it's through organizing a legal clinic. I do legal clinics like twice a year where I drag most of my friends, my lawyer friends, to come and, give free legal advice, which they do. We had one about 2 months ago. We had 25 attorneys that gave their time to help people and solve their issue. I've hosted judicial seminars where I bring judges into the community to tell us about what's happening in housing court, what's happening in surrogate court, what's happening in, guardianship court. Because again, education is power. Yes.
Let's talk about legal transparency.
Hmm.
Melody Davis says she has created legal transparency.
Hmm.
What does she mean by that? If you can get into that pocket.
Yeah. So legal transparency is you walk into the courthouse and you know how to fight for yourself.
Okay.
If you're the plaintiff, you know how to prosecute your case. And if you're the defendant, you know how to defend yourself. Because most of us go into the courthouse and we don't have a clue. First, we couldn't hire an attorney because they wanted a retainer that cost thousands of dollars, right? How
Okay.
many people can afford thousands of dollars to retain an attorney? As an insider in the court system, I see how when people come in the court system, the person who has an attorney, a high-powered attorney, might achieve a different result than somebody who comes in pro se. So my thing has always been, how can I make a pro se's life better? How can I give them the tools that they need so when they get to court, they can prosecute or defend their case? And that's what legal transparency means to me. Another word is access to justice,
Mhm.
people knowing and being familiar with the law so that they can stand up for themselves in court.
That's right. Access to justice.
Access to justice, yes. So
Um,
going back to your original question about what makes me qualified, because there are other people. For me, what makes me qualified is my commitment to my community through the creating access to justice, expanding access to justice, getting legal information out there to empower people.
hold
That's
up.
what my mission has been.
Hold
Mhm.
up. Are you saying to me tonight, in front of our publics, we have Dennis Washington in the building? Awesome. We need knowledge of the judicial system in the Black community, especially today. Are you saying to me that part of your platform is making sure that the community understands what's going on in the courtroom?
Absolutely. One of the things that I've been doing, we did it the first time on Saturday in my meet and greet the candidate, where I try to demystify the whole, civil court judicial election process.
Okay.
One thing I'm finding out is that most people are not familiar with how judges get to the bench,
Teach us.
right?
Teach us tonight. 1 minute. Teach us. Let's go.
Okay. So, part of how it all works is judges are either elected or they're appointed. I'm going to talk about the election process because that's what I'm going through.
Okay.
So, so one thing people have to be familiar with is there's usually the establishment candidate. I'm not it, right? And when I say establishment, I mean the Democratic Party here in Kings County. They have a candidate that they're supporting and endorsing. I'm running a grassroots campaign, meaning I'm going against the establishment. And so what I'm doing is knocking on doors, meeting the voters on the ground, and arguing my case to the voters as to why they should vote for me as opposed to any of the other candidates, right? So once the primary is happening June 22nd. On June 22nd, if you're a registered Democrat and you live in the second municipal district, which is where I'm running, and for those that don't know, the second municipal district covers Bedford-Stuyvesant, Crown Heights, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, and the Ocean Hill part of East New York. There
Okay.
are other judges that are running countywide, but I'm running for a district-wide seat, and those are the areas that it covers.
What's the name of the district? What's the number?
Second municipal district.
Okay.
So if you live and you're registered in the second municipal district, you will see Lola Waterman on your ballot. And, of course, I can tell you who to vote for, Lola Waterman, right? So
Right.
I will be on the ballot, and that would be for the primary. Because Brooklyn is a heavily Democratic county, the general is more like a formality. So the general election happens in November. Usually, whomever wins the primary is the person that wins the general election in November. But
Okay.
the primary is June 22nd.
Okay.
So civil court judges basically deal with cases that are $25,000 or less,
Mm.
right? So what types of cases do you see in civil court? You would see, let's say you're suing me, Cedric, for $15,000 for defamation, right?
Okay.
That's where you would go. If I came to your barber shop and when I came in with my crew, we started throwing things and damaged your shop, you can sue me and you would go to civil court.
Okay.
Civil court also has other parts in it. There's the housing part. So the landlord tenant part is part of the civil court. It's a branch. And then we have the small claims part, which is any claims that are $10,000 or less.
Okay.
So civil court judges, and for those that don't know, civil court in New York is known as the People's Court. And
Okay.
that's because about 25% of all the cases in New York City pass through the civil court. That's a lot. That's a lot of cases.
Okay.
So it's known as the People's Court because that's where the majority of us would go to sue somebody or if we're being sued.
Okay.
So, it's important that we understand that judges, civil court judges, are also elected into 10-year terms. So unlike your unlike your assembly member who gets 2 years, or your city council people, they get 4, judges get 10. All right. And most judges are in civil court for decades if they don't go up to Supreme, right? Mm-hmm.
Do we need more diversity amongst the civil court judges in the state of New York? Do we need more diversity?
Absolutely. We need more women. We need more people of color. We need more men of color on the
Okay.
bench. And so,
So
absolutely.
So what we're raising awareness about tonight is that this is a very big deal,
Yeah.
very big deal, because so many of the cases that occur, they have to go through civil court. And when you talk about legal transparency, when you talk about being comfortable inside the courtroom, understanding that you're being treated fairly, buying into the judicial system where you live, which impacts the entire community, it's important that you see people that look like you, who has an experience that's similar to yours, and who is willing to be intrapersonal in processing your case. And right now, we actually need you to be in that seat. We need you because we need your perspective in order for us to really have a fair experience.
And just to add to that too, just because somebody looks like me does not mean they're patient with me because
That's
they're
right.
on the bench, right? So that's why we have to dig a little deeper.
Yep.
It's not just about looking like me, but it's about having the same values as me.
What are your
Knowing
values? What are your values? What are your values?
public service. Like I'm gonna beat public service in the head because that's just who I am. Public service, caring for mankind and those around me. Hard work, perseverance, resilience, all of those words that we mentioned. A love of self and love of community, love of family,
This is powerful. The work that you're embarking on right now is important.
Yes.
It's critical. The sense of urgency is here. The time is now. We need to support you. We need to wrap around you. If you're in District 2, get out there in June, get back out there in November and support. Lola Waterman is clearly stating why her values could line up with so many of yours. What's your slogan?
Qualified, experience, commitment to community.
There you have it.
And
We're down
empathy.
to the final. We are down to the final 2 minutes of the show. I want to say that I am so moved tonight. I'm so moved tonight. I'm not campaigning for you. I'm listening to you. I'm agreeing with what you're saying because it makes sense. I spent years of my life in foster care. I was adopted at the age of 15 years old. I spent more than 2 decades of my life in survival mode. I understand what it's like to make a major transition in your life, continue to work and try to exceed people's expectations and keep it all together. And you've done that and more. And so I personally identify with you. That's what I'm doing tonight. I'm personally identifying with you for you being transparent about your story, and I deeply appreciate that. We got 3 questions as we round third base here, and I'd like you to answer them. The first question: what is survival to you?
Survival is walking into a situation, assessing the situation, and using your best judgment to overcome any challenge that is in your way, right? And the way to do that is by one, being grounded in your faith, two, having a strong support system, and three, hard work.
We're down to the final 20 seconds of the show. What is success to you?
Oh, success is happiness and peace.
What is greatness to you?
Respect for everyone and everything around you. Most importantly, God.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your crown emojis into the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crown emojis into the chat. Lola Waterman, I want to let you know that we listened to your story today. I love the way you overcame adversity and how you made it to where you are today. You are a movement. You are a tidal wave. We're giving you respect today while you can still receive it, and we're giving you your crown today. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crown emojis into the chat. Put your crown emojis into the chat. Because we are letting the world know, letting you know that you, Lola Waterman, you are America's next motivator.
Thank you. Thank you. This was great.
Absolutely.
I had a fabulous day. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to seeing you back on the street on Fulton Street.
Absolutely. You got crowns coming into the building. Thanks for stopping by tonight, all right?
Thank you, family. Good night.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you've got to do, just like you did tonight, stop by and pick it up.